It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hey, welcome to the program. Welcome back to the program. We've got Brenda Vassaur on the line. She's from Commerce in Action, and I wanted to bring her in and let's talk a little bit about truth. Brenda, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate being back.
Absolutely. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about this Senate District 16 race. Most notably, it's interesting that when we hear where certain candidates are on positions, there has been the tendency to come back and just say, well, one side is lying about the other. Have you been following any of this?
I have, Paul, and I appreciate the time that you're giving me to sort of give some perspective on that. First, let me remind the listeners, if they don't know who I am, I'm a tax attorney, CPA credentialed, been a lawyer for nearly 40 years. I'm a farm girl. Father was a cotton farmer. Husband was a rice farmer. Homeschooled my 4 children. We moved to the Fayetteville area about 10 years ago, and we deal every day in provable facts. If we are only financially successful when we can win in court based on what we prove to be true, and that upholding under the rule of law what we say is correct is what we deal in every day at my office. 2 of my adult children are attorneys. One is a CPA. The other one, sells farmland. We're not salesmen. We are people who deal in facts. Now, as you or your listeners may know, I'm part of the Conduit Liberty Machine, and that's what we do in our political work. We deal in provable facts. And because I have been involved with Commerce in Action in the Senate District 16 race, I'm very familiar with an ad that was put out by one of the PACs, Truth in Politics, listing 15 issues. I know that voters in Arkansas care about the issues. This is a Republican primary, and it's based on, I assume, at least it has been in the past, that Republican voters want to elect someone who reflects their positions. So this ad was put out with 15 issues. 14 were published in the newspaper, 15 online. The differences in the 2 candidates. And they were accompanied with 3 pages of sources, line by line, linked to either videos when the candidates stated these facts, surveys where they answered the questions a certain way. And, of course, our governor has said for the last 3 years he is going to support and is entitled to support candidates who support his policies. And so we had quite a bit of experience watching our governor do this, and so we knew what that meant as well as far as the position of the candidates.
So what?
Now, with that said,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say. So what do we do when you have facts that are well sourced, and yet we have letters, like we had a letter that go out this week from the Breanne Davis campaign talking about lies and distortions, that are going around in the campaign, and people who support one candidate over the other. I mean, but these aren't lies. These are actual positions that she's taken.
Well, we've only been involved in this arena. We don't make a living in politics. Our members of our organization, we work for a living, and then we do this as a contribution to helping to make Arkansas a better place. But we've been doing this since about 2014, and we have watched that one of the number 1 strategies of the political industry is projection. So you can be assured when they start accusing their opponent of a certain thing that that's what they're guilty of. It's just as dependable as anything. But in 2014, one of the first races we were involved in, the number 1 line from the opponent was, private option is not Obamacare. And that was rather a staggering statement since private option was Medicaid expansion. It is Medicaid expansion, and that is one of the 3 tenets of Obamacare. And then in 2016, we see the election of Eddie Joe Williams, Jane English, with the governor standing behind them saying they have never voted for Obamacare. Mm-hmm. Well, they had voted several times.
Yeah, it wasn't true. That wasn't a true statement that Asa made. Absolutely. Asa had to take the conservative position in order to win. He had to mislead and claim the far right position of being opposed to Obamacare, when in reality those candidates had supported it many times.
Right, but I'm going to say something that saddens my heart as a woman and as a mother. Those opponents were seasoned politicians: John Burris, Eddie Joe Williams, Jane English. But Brenda Davis is a young woman, fresh, 3 young children. She's starting her political career. So Friday, when I saw that letter from her that started out, just a classic strategy, started out saying, my opponent's lies and distortions of my beliefs, positions, and my character, he's decided to run a campaign based on dishonesty. My heart was broken for her as a woman who understands how hard it is to balance family and a career, and to see her start her political career on such a statement. It may be consistent with what the political industry does in Arkansas, but it just saddened me to see this.
Yeah, so it's like the dishonesty. I mean, are we just now in a world where we're going to equate facts we don't like, the people knowing that that's somehow dishonest? And that's kind of what it seems like.
Well, apparently, I think what it does is a counterfeit, and this has been a strategy, I think, since the beginning of time, to counterfeit the truth. There's truth, and then there is a lie, and you counterfeit something to match, look similar to the truth, but a little bit different. Then one does not believe the truth either. And, of course, you hear people every day say, oh, they all lie. They're politicians, So what would come out of Bob's mouth is, if it is weakened to believe it is not truth either, no one is speaking the truth, then the voter becomes, disinterested.
Yeah.
Oh, give up. There's no use. And, that's when we all lose our freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, if people just kind of throw their hands up and say, all right, there's no one righteous here. There's no one I can agree with on the issues and that sort of thing. I did notice there's a Michael Wickline article we were going over that actually did kind of reiterate that there are clear differences between the two candidates, though. And so I kind of felt like that was validating some of this other ad that went out, when we talk about the Second Amendment, or we talk about tort reform, or we talk about Arkansas Works.
Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe Mike looked at the sources. I mean, he can read. Mm-hmm. I would assume.
Yeah, and there are a lot of sources on here. Specifically, let's go with term limits for a second. I mean, when you look at what Brenda Davis said versus what Bob Bailey said at the Pope County Republican meeting, that is on video, where she said that, hey, she thinks that term limits are not a good thing, that people need to be down there longer. Bob Bailey saying, no, term limits are a good thing because, the power of incumbency is really, really, difficult. I mean, so that's a clear issue, and the people of Senate District 16 can make up their minds. This whole thing, anytime, you approach an election, you want a clear choice. You want to know the differences. And I think there are differences. I think, shouting liar, liar is a way to distract from the clear differences between the two candidates that represent two distinct directions for the people of District 16.
I noticed that in her letter she said she would not vote for a tax increase. And, of course, that's really a big issue right now. Mm-hmm. The Internet sales tax is a tax increase. There are those who want to say this is a tax already owed. It's a use tax. It's just not being collected. So someone who voted for that passage of that legislation may want to embrace the argument that this is not raising taxes. To bring in $150 million more annually to Arkansas would not be a tax increase. People can say that, but it doesn't make it true. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're collecting money that you weren't previously collecting, you have to pass a law to do it. We like to argue with Charlie Collins. He'll go down forever saying it's not a tax increase. But to me, that's just like saying the private option, Arkansas Works, is not Medicaid expansion, is not Obamacare. I mean, really, our voters now have to be committed to finding the truth, and the truth is there, and it's not hard. It is just looking at things from the perspective of what are these people trying to sell me, and what are they getting out of it? And I think that might lead a lot to understanding the truth in all the noise.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up about the tax increase, because we have seen time and time again they will raise taxes, and they will come back to us and say, no, we didn't raise taxes. They'll grow government, and then they'll claim it's conservative, and that is really, really hard to parse that. So when you have a letter that goes that says, I'm not for tax increases, but Asa claims he's not for tax increases either. Right? I mean, he calls the tire tax increase, oh, that's just a fee. We had to take care of some environmental stuff. I mean, he dismisses what is clearly a tax increase. And so that's what's so frustrating with these campaigns is, and, you know, when you're so affiliated with Asa Hutchinson and you're getting all your money from the Marble Palace, you're getting all your money from lobbyists in Little Rock, and you say you're not for any tax increases, well, the Republicans down there claim that they are not for tax increases when they have raised our taxes. And so we have to have, I mean, Thomas Jefferson said that an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. And so I really hope that the people of District 16 are aware of the carefully crafted language. And, I mean, it really is an establishment versus anti-establishment race, very much like you see on the national level sometimes.
In January, last month, our governor came to our Washington County Republican Committee, and Joe Maynard asked him, Governor, I see that you've raised spending, or you've increased spending about $200 million a year since you've been in office. Can we expect that to continue? And Governor Hutchinson said, yes, you can, and the reason is because of the prisons, the highways, and Medicaid expansion, or Medicaid. Those costs will cause us to continue to need to continue to increase spending. And so Joe also asked Ms. Davis that last month at the Pope County Republican Committee, not her committee, she's not a member of that committee, but she was there, asked her that question, and her response was she would continue the spending because of the cost of prisons. And so looking at the budget, and you see that it's 7.8% of all state spending, I mean, and that's the reason we're going to continue our spending at $200 million
a year.
When the voter understands, a year. When the voter understands that, they can understand, what's going on. Why don't we just put all our Medicaid spending in a block grant, and then give all the increased $200 million to our Department of Corrections? Maybe we can do that. You know, if we're determined to improve correction. Yeah,
that's another consistency between Asa and Brienne. They are now blaming their spending increases year after year after year, now $600 million on prisons, when that's not the driver of our spending at all. It's very minuscule, and in fact, the prison system's underfunded. I mean, if you look at what's going on, we can't keep the criminals behind bars to serve their sentences. And just last week we had that story where they were transferring a bunch of guards to another facility. They were temporarily shutting down a facility because it's just they can't continue to pay the workers the wage with the overtimes that they're working. They're going to have more money. So, I mean, we know that we now have, let's just talk about Arkansas Works, because of this program that's sucking money up from all these other places. I mean, we are abdicating our responsibility as a government towards the things that we all agree on, verily. Like, so the majority really agrees that we got to have a prison system. We got to have a place to keep criminals. We have way more people that agree with that, or paying for good roads, than we do with continuing to pay for able-to-work adults who are not working to get free health insurance while we all go to work and can't afford our own health insurance.
Well, think about the increase in our spending. It's $200 million per year, and the entire budget for the Department of Corrections is it's in the $400 million per year. I mean, the increase is half of our Department of Corrections budget. Sort of phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. Well, Brenda, I really appreciate you coming on. Brenda Vassaur Taylor with Commerce in Action, and I'll give you the last word on this because, like I said, I know you've been watching, and I know it was really when we start having candidates, or when Breanne starts saying that it's dishonest or people are lying about others' positions, and yet you have the sources. We even have now Michael Wickline, who, like you said, apparently has read those sources, and he's reporting on several of the issues that were in the initial ad. I just wanted to have you on and set the record straight.
I appreciate that. I always appreciate being on, and I would just encourage Senate District 16 and all of Arkansas as they gear up for these primaries that don't give up, win or lose. Being willing to engage in the battle or in the war is a win for our state, because truth is worth fighting for. And like you mentioned about the communist Chinese, we don't believe what they believe. We believe freedom is important, and freedom starts with speaking the truth and embracing it and acting accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that we can stand before future generations and say we at least tried to do something. I agree with that. Brenda Vassaur Taylor with Commerce in Action, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All righty, folks, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.